Michael Bream, welcome to the Jesus Garcia podcast once again.
Jehu, thanks for having me. Always good to see you, buddy.
There's a lot of stuff that's happened since you were here last. I don't know. It's like been a few months, right? But you were telling us last time about your race.
Right. I think the last time,
record.
right. I think the last time we did the show, we were getting the Electroliner. It's kind of our name for the project for the car. We were getting it ready for Bonneville, and we were trying to go out to set a land speed record in the electric class. And we didn't want to do an overall one because we've never done this before. So we wanted to take, baby steps. So we went for what they call like a class record. So we built a sub 1,000 kilogram electric car, right? So basically less than 2,200 pounds.
Less than 2,200 pounds.
Yeah.
That's so the classes are structures by weight of the car?
Right, yeah. So there's 500 kilogram and below is E1. We were 500 to 1,000 kilogram, and then basically 1,000 kilogram and up is E3, but it's essentially like what people call unlimited, because at that point there's really no limit on what you can do. That's the class that the Venturi, the Buckeye Bullet from Ohio State, that's the class that they have the record in at 314, and now we want to go back next year and go for that. I think what they call it is salt fever. We got diagnosed with it.
and then the one on top of that is like the crazies, the rocket engine car,
yeah.
Stuff. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we want to focus on stuff that has relative, information and data to what we do, and it's all wheel driven. I mean, we don't play with jets and rockets and stuff like that. So, and I think a lot of hot rod guys and car guys in general, like that's where the kind of land speed ends for them, is at the wheel driven stuff. And that record I think is 488 right now. It's amazing that they're just below 500 miles an hour wheel driven, right? And when we were out at Bonneville last month, we got to see the Speed Demon get their 477 mile an hour record, which is the fastest, piston-powered car in the world. It's basically the fastest V8 in the world, did 477. Whoa. It's a sight to see. It's pretty crazy. They're setting the bar real high for us.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, that's almost 500 miles. Does it sound like a jet?
Everything sounds like a jet out there at that speed. I mean, if you look at the Electroliner, it sounds like a jet. The wind over a couple hundred miles an hour takes on this really neat audio sound, and then of course you've got the Doppler effect at those speeds too. So it's really, really cool. I think that's one of the neater things about Bonneville is the sounds and being there in person, and then you see these videos and they just don't quite do it justice.
Yeah, I kind of feel like, damn, I should have been over there, because I'd want to see that. I've never been there, but it looks like super iconic.
It's captivating. It really is. I've never been. My father has been, and he's done some land speed stuff with some other members of the family. And, so I felt it was kind of like my, lineage duty to go out there and take my son. And my dad actually went out there with us and helped pit on the Electroliner project last month. And, this year was really tough for those guys because of COVID and planning and all that. But we're definitely planning on going out there for Speed Week next year, 2021. And we're going to back up the record in the Electroliner. And then we have our second car that we're building now that's going to be the 350 plus mile an hour car.
Oh, there we go. Hey, so what was your first run? What was it? What was the speed that you got?
Well, no good feat goes without drama. And one of the things that we ran into drama out there was we had some problems with our driver, and some of them kind of came up before we actually left to Bonneville. And then as we were going through safety, we realized that our driver actually hadn't driven at Bonneville. He misled us and led us to believe that he had experience driving out there. So when we got ready to do our first run, the officials they do these things called like shakedown runs, where they're called licensing runs, because you have to get a license to go certain speeds. So as you move up, you capture a license, and it's like a video game that unlocks the next level. You do, 3 of those, and then they let you go to the big 8-mile long course, and then you can kind of keep moving up. So the first thing they wanted us to do was like just go a little bit over 125 miles an hour. They said, do 130, 135, don't exceed 150, and pull your parachute at the 2-mile mark. and our driver just, you know, was like, he pinned it, and he did 222 miles an hour on the first run, you know. So he really was unsafe. And you know, so we had to sit down and talk to him and settle him down, and at one point I just had to turn the power down on him because it seemed like his right foot was just alpha male right foot. And yeah, it was tough because we had a guy that we really went into this and thought that he would give us feedback and communicate and this and that, and he really just kind of shut down, didn't really communicate, and wasn't a team player.
Wow.
And you know,
yeah, that's crazy because so much effort went into building that car. I mean,
right.
you guys,
Yeah.
You
And
guys
there was
did-
little clues, you know, beforehand. We had a couple appointments where he was supposed to come down in all of his safety gear and test fit the car, and he always just managed to like forget something, either his shoes or helmet or Hans, and we never did a proper fitment. So when we made it to the salt and we had to do a proper fitment for the officials with his shoes and gloves and everything on, he couldn't pull the parachute or fire pulls. And this is something that we should, you know, it's just a minor detail, but now we're on the salt, welding and grinding and repositioning safety controls and doing a lot of stuff that should have been handled back here. So we kind of, you know, got there and we started off behind. We missed 3 days just trying to get all these safety issues taken care of, right? And while we were going through this, we kind of started a relationship with the officials. I mean, I really can't say enough nice things about SCTA BNI, you know, the Southern California Timing Association that puts on, they're the sanctioning body for Bonneville and El Mirage and basically all the land speed records wheel driven in America. And so they were kind of seeing what was going on. They really liked our team, our crew. They liked the car. I think that they liked, we were really like forward looking by bringing the solar panels, our whole pit, the welding, the aforementioned welding and grinding, we did that all on solar power, right? So we weren't running generators, and you know, we had this killer like 7 kilowatt solar array with like a 68 kilowatt hour battery. So we were juiced for the week. We were fine. And later in the week, it was recommended to us, if we wanted to keep coming back, that we should have a new driver. And we actually were able to find one there. Just a serendipitous visit to the taco shop one night. We were lucky enough to meet a gentleman and his wife. You know, my son, little 5-year-old Eli, he strikes up a conversation with a land speed racer, this lady. She was a motorcycle land speed racer. And when her husband found out that we were the electric guys, he introduced himself as Jim Hoogerhide, and he holds the electric land speed record on a Lightning motorcycle. I know. What? I was like, I couldn't believe it. So we kind of hit it off, and we were chit-chatting back and forth. As it would turn out, the tacos were really good. We went to the same taco shop the next night, and he was there with his wife, Leslie. And we chatted with them again, and it never came up driving the car. It wasn't until the following day that we realized we were really, really in a poor situation with our driver, and he was really compromising our whole entire effort to this point. And at that point, we asked Jim if he would drive the car. We had already established a 218 record, so we had beat the standing record of 213, so we had 5 miles an hour on it. But we knew we could do better. And we sat down with Jim, and since he was a new driver, we had to go through all the safety stuff again. So we had to actually move some controls. You're right.
I didn't re-weld.
Yeah, no, we did. We had to. They're really critical, especially with their own, because Jim is an SCTA official. So they really take care of their own. They want to make sure he was safe. So we went through maybe 4 hours of modifying the car, belts and parachute throws and all that. Did the safety inspection, and then there was just a short period of time left before the end of the day, and it says something to the reliability and consistency of electric. We went out there, got another qualifying run that allowed us to go into impound to back it up for a second average run. At Bonneville, you need 2 runs, and the salt closes at 5:20 or 5:30, and at 5:27 they brought us back out on the salt for our second backup run, and we did that was the record one, like 232 or something. It gave us a 229 mile an hour average, and it was just great. The whole SCTA, I mean, they were cheering and clapping for us. your car has to be watched the entire time from ending the last run to going into impound to going to the line and starting again. And Bill Lattin, the president of the SCTA, personally came in and watched our car and towed us to the line and did a lot of neat stuff. So we really felt welcome. We felt like they were, even though we were the only electric, we really felt like they were trying to push and encourage other people to run electrics and get them involved in the program. And of course, that's why we did it. You know, that's why we did all the other stuff, Pikes Peak and Mexican 1000 and all that. We just want to encourage people to do this. The real story is we built the car in about 60 days, right? So it wasn't a huge effort. The driveline is nothing incredibly special. It's a re-geared Tesla motor with a few hacks on it, and that's it. Dropped it in, and the motor's capable of wheel speed of like 330 mile an hour. And throughout the week, we kept increasing the power to the motor. And we ended the week not even anywhere near where we wanted to be in terms of power. We just simply ran out of time, unfortunately. And those 3 days at the beginning really ended up hurting us. But now we're, you know, always looking forward and just really stoked. We've got a fantastic driver now who's got electric experience. He was good enough to drive the car and actually beat our previous record that day. So that's fantastic. And now we get to go back to Bonneville with a 2-car effort next year. So it should be a lot of fun. And hopefully we'll see some other electrics. You know, there's plenty of time. So if you're watching or listening, plenty of time to build your project before Speed Week 2021.
Yeah. And the weird thing is that you can't really test this before then, right? I kind of asked your team, like, hey, when are you guys testing this? And they're like, how do you test this? Like, there's no other place in the world.
And we've done similar projects. When we did the EV1, the off-road car that we did the Mexican 1000 with, that was the same thing. It's not street legal, so if you go out on the street and test it, there's a good chance it could be impounded. And but at least we could play with it around the business park, right? The land speed car, we took it out of the shop and we just went down, and you know our shop, it's pretty flat, but we couldn't even make it around the turn at the corner of the building because there was just enough of a crest in the cement that it just got high side. It got stuck in our parking lot because there's, I think, you know, an inch of clearance. Like when you look at these, and if you look, you know, Electroliner is our social handle. We've got an Instagram account, so you can check out pictures of the car there. But the car sits, you know, an inch off the ground, so the slightest little bump is going to cause it to bottom out.
And it's really long, so any
158-inch wheelbase, whatever that calculates to be. I think 14 feet or something like that.
Yeah, and it's all custom made. You guys welded together, designed this body. Out of tube.
Yeah, I mean, like 58 days before we went to Bonneville, delivery truck pulled up with, you know, a stack of, tubes, chromoly inch and 5/8 tubing. And it's so weird to see literally a pile of tubes, you know, get assembled into a full-blown race chassis, you know. And and so it's just exciting. It's a neat project to see because we literally started, I think our first Instagram post was just like a square box where the driver was going to sit, you know, and then we just started adding and adding and adding and building on to that now. So,
so next year is going to be really exciting then. You guys are going to take, I mean, this is no small feat. You guys got a record. Yeah. Right? So on the first try.
We're out here to encourage people, you know. I think the neat thing about doing it as a company instead of as a private, you know, kind of personal effort is we're more open, right? We're sharing our data. We've divulged every detail of our system to a T, so you could actually build the exact system that we did. And data gathering, you know, we were running data logging from AEM Electronics, so we captured a ton of data. And now this data is going to help us in battery size selection. I mean, just a lot of the things going forward for these, you know, competition style events.
Did you hear from Milan at all?
Not this time.
Not this time.
Not this time.
Because, I mentioned that because we had Blake, right? Blake Fuller, right? And we had him before he went up there. He actually holds your old record.
Yes,
speed,
Blake,
right?
and that's why I like Blake, because I got to meet him in Texas, in Austin, and the first thing I did is congratulate him on beating our record. It's so neat to you know, because we live in different parts of the states, so it's neat to meet him in person, you know, and just really congratulate him, and then to see him up it this year was so exciting to see, like, the dueling Model 3s going at it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I didn't know this. I want to. He's coming back. I guess we're gonna reschedule him here. But that was a crazy thing because he beat a team that was way more experienced, way more like the car was. That car, like the one that crashed, was a much better, bigger car. It was like way more optimized,
capable or something. Yeah.
Right, and he was able to beat him. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Well, I know the Unplugged guys are pretty legit. We've done a few things with them over there, and so they're a neat group of guys. Randy, you know, he's got the history there, but he also has a history of having some accidents there as well. Now, I don't know if that's... Yeah, no, I mean, there's a famous... you know, he's gone off. It happens.
But this guy, Randy, has like the top numbers almost of any track, right? Like, this guy is no stranger to having records at whatever racetracks he goes to.
Right.
And then that car was lighter, had more power.
Yeah.
It was way more optimized to win that race.
But I mean, Blake is a good driver, you know. So congratulations, Blake. Like, you earned that one. Nobody gave that one to you, and that's what's nice about it, right? So.
Yeah, and so I was bringing that race up because they Unplugged Performance actually had the backing of Tesla. They actually, when they crashed that car, you know, Tesla was like, yeah, we can get you another car, and they just made it happen. Within an hour, they had another car, you know, and then they went and redid that thing. What is that thing called when you have to match the controller to the new motor?
Oh, yeah, right, like the encryption, the key. There's like an encryption key for it,
So they had to do that because they had to change motors or whatever. Yeah, so they had, you know, I mean, Elon wasn't there cheering them on, but he kind of was in the background.
Yeah.
You know, they had the support. And of course, I kind of get it. It's their car, right? Where you're doing their powertrain.
Right.
But it's still something. I mean, it's a world record.
Yeah.
You
I think the closest we came, we did an event last year for NBC Sports. I think it was a program called Drive. We went out to Chuckwalla Raceway in Palm Springs, and Tesla was there, and they had a couple Model 3s, and they were doing some filming with them, and then myself and my friend who has the Tesla sand truck was there. And we were chit-chatting with some of the guys from Tesla, asking about, like, our off-road truck and the car and if they've seen it. And he told us that the day before he came out to Chuckwalla, him and Elon were watching videos of our M3 drifting together on YouTube. And I said, well, you know, what'd he say? He's like, are you kidding? He thought it was super cool. And I mean, that made my day, you know, just, you know, to get that feedback directly from somebody that sat with Elon and kind of watched what we were doing, and to just get, like, a verification that, like, he's into this, the spirit of kind of tinkering and seeing what we can do to go faster, further, better, whatever it might be, just improve, you know. And he's kind of got that mantra, so it's neat to get that verification.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, fun stuff.
What did you think about the new battery system that he just announced?
It's going to be interesting, you know. I can't wait to see it, you know, based on some feedback that I've gotten from some people that know more than me. It's going to be very much integrated into the car, and so it's going to be far more difficult to extract them from the car and use them, and that's okay, because as time goes on, you know, more batteries are coming to market, and we're working with some companies now on some actual brand new modules, so we can get away from this used thing that we've been doing for a really long time, right? I mean, Tesla's filling a void right now. But it's not that it has to be Tesla. We just need somebody to fill the void of really high quality, you know, kind of top shelf batteries. And we're not getting that from China right now, right? So the real batteries are coming out of Japan and Korea and here in the States. And you know, the most prevalent one, of course, is Tesla. So everybody's kind of using it. But there's, you know, the Koreans make a really good battery. The LG Chem stuff and the Samsung stuff is really good. And we're playing with some Panasonics from Japan right now that seem to be really good. So
yeah, what battery did you end up using for that electroliner?
yeah, right. So we used a Panasonic from Japan, a lithium iron phosphate Panasonic, a prismatic.
Lithium iron phosphate?
Not a iron phosphate, a prismatic one,
Okay.
iron phosphate.
Okay.
Sorry.
Whoa.
Yeah, I tried to correct that. But really good battery, really good, really safe. We did some, you know, one of our biggest concerns was the safety, right? Because if we had a thermal and a runaway, our car could have been stuck on the salt for 6 hours and we could have ruined an entire day of running for other competitors. So the single most important thing is we wanted a battery that was incredibly safe. So we did a lot of thermal run-ups and we did some short circuit tests on the battery and got them to go open circuit. And you are no stranger to abusing batteries. We've done some fun stuff together. And that's basically what we were doing, some of those old school tests, high load tests and things like that. So
Wait, so you got it to open up so the batteries give up at one point?
yeah.
Open circuit?
Yeah.
How do they do that? They have a
You know what? It's fascinating. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you some and let you play with it because I think that you would explain what it's doing well. And basically we're just doing a direct short, you know, kind of like the old school. We just throw a wrench across the terminals. We had that little rig. You and I have played with it. We built that load tester here where we could get some current readings. And the cells were good to about 400. Once they hit about 500, they would just go into this real heavy voltage sag and then literally just go to zero. Yeah.
Wow.
And if they were in series, they were open circuit. So, you know,
the whole pack is
right.
activated.
Yeah. The whole pack goes open. So that made us feel really good. And then when we went through inspection, the SCTA officials at Bonneville were definitely a little bit interested in the battery and the safety systems. They wanted to know if we had, you know, water flooding systems or CO2 systems and all of that stuff. They were really interested. And this is not just for SCTA and Bonneville. I think a lot of sanctioning bodies across America right now are looking at a kind of a universal or easy set of rules that they can adapt to help bring electrics into their events and help them participate, but at the same time keep it safe. Because everybody involved in electrics doesn't want to see one of these kind of thermal runaway events that we've seen before, but we haven't had one at a competition yet. And it would be entirely different at a competition if it was on the course and couldn't be moved for some period of time. Yeah.
And you weren't pushing that system that hard, right? You said you
yeah, no, we really weren't. And I mean, you can see the data. We published a video online, and we were doing all the data logging. So we did a neat little video overlay that shows, you know, our voltage and our current and all of that stuff. So real time, you can calculate where we're at in kilowatts and all that. And you know, we were only around 300. We were really pretty limited. We can crank that thing up to about 450. So we definitely left a lot on the table.
Yeah, and to give a perspective, I think when most people like Tesla Model S owners launch their car on Ludicrous, they're probably seeing like 450 kilowatt, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So this is
and
less
sometimes
than what
more
you're
actually
doing.
split between the two axles. You know, but the other thing is when you do that, you're typically got your foot in it for 6 to 10 seconds. You know, here at Bonneville, you're flat for about a minute and a half. So it's pretty crazy because we've all done load testing and you see, you know, 1,000, 1,100 amps and you're like, okay, everything's starting to get warm, clock's ticking. You start getting to that minute mark and everything, you know, you're starting to get a little more heat saturated. Things become difficult. Yeah. So it's, you know, it's the time. It's not the amount of current. It's the amount of current over time. And you're just transferring such a huge amount of energy in a short period of time. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the key point where Elon, I don't know if he did a good job explaining that, but the thermal stability, those new cells that he's introduced, that's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
You'll be able to cool them quicker for extended period of time. Because right now it's really hard. All that mass inside all those little cells, and you're only literally touching like a tiny portion of that casing. And so it's cool for launching a car, you know. Like
he did a really good job of explaining the, you know, the current path through the cell and being rolled up cylindrically, and you can just, extrapolate that out, how much they've saved in resistance, and now they've actually got fewer quantity of cells, so it just kind of compounds. Not only is each cell a shorter current path, much more efficient with a lower resistance, but now you're pushing more through that cell, and there's less cells in there, so your combined resistance is much less too.
Yeah, and so manufacturing is easier on those, and faster and cheaper supposedly, right? And
yeah.
But I think those are going to be much more capable cells, right?
So I hope so. Yeah, one of my machinists here actually did a prototype the other day. He took the dimensions 4680 and did a cell. You might have seen it. It actually went around. Yeah. It kind of went viral. People like can't read.
Yes, one guy was saying, "How does EV West had it?" And I go, "It's not. It's just a mock-up. It's like a thing, right?" They're like, I go, and then he goes, "Can you share the mock-ups that they're going at?" And I go, "No, I'm not EV West. They were asking me about it." And
it's great. I mean, it's really neat because, you put it in your hand, so it's neat to kind of feel it and get a sense of its size. It's definitely bigger than a D cell. A D cell feels small to it, but at the same time, it's kind of like a can of V8, maybe a short can of V8. But it's neat. You can tell how it would make a big difference, so it's neat to see such a physical change, because the jump from the 18650 to the 2170 was really just kind of like a really minor step, right? So it's neat to see this and anticipate what it's going to do, for us, right?
Yeah, it's gonna make that plaid or plaid vehicle possible, I guess.
Right. And
now the DIY thing.
Yeah, he's setting a model for the other guys too. I would assume that LG and Samsung and Panasonic and a lot of these guys are sitting around, looking real carefully at what they got going on there.
Yeah, that's crazy, because he's first saying like, I want to buy the best cell in the world. And then, he does his integration with Panasonic. And then a few years later, they're like, you guys are not cutting it. Now I'm going to have to make the best cell in the world. So now he's innovating in that space, which is a crazy thing.
Yeah. What was your thought on Battery Day? I mean, I was a little let down from the lack of information, and I don't want to say I was let down because then people would be like, oh, Michael didn't like Battery Day. But leading up to it, there was a lot of talk of the dry electrolyte process. Talk of Maxwell's patent and the manufacturing process, and I feel like they just skipped all of that.
No, I mean,
and it might have just been a bullet point. They talked about. I thought one of the most interesting things was how they talked about not that the battery's easier to make, but the equipment that makes the battery is easier to make, and so that accelerates the speed in which they can set up more battery gigafactories and things like that. But, Elon's usually one that's not light on details. I was hoping he would dive into that a little bit, and he really didn't, right? It seemed like kind of like a shorter presentation.
On my side, I totally screwed up. Like, here's the thing. You and me are in the same boat. We get asked about the silicon battery, the air, the next breakthrough technology, the super battery of the future, right?
Yeah.
And I'm... At this point, after years and years of technology, of like announcements that this is the next breakthrough and this is going to be the next, you're just like, whatever. I don't believe it. I'm super skeptical when it comes to any battery technology. I'm like, this is what we got right now, and this is useful. Like anything else, it's who knows where it is.
Well, and without being skeptical, it's good to just be practical, right? And when people reach out to guys like you or me for some knowledge or some information, they want a practical answer, right? And it's very much in terms of realistic stuff, like, hey, I've got a 1972 bus and I want to convert it. What battery do you recommend? Well, I'm not going to go on and on about some, sulfur air or whatever battery that's not even out yet, right? And so, but customers obviously sometimes, well, what about this? Or I read an article on this. And you got to constantly remind them that, hey, that's fantastic, but I don't have it on my shelf. I don't know anybody with it on their shelf.
It's vaporware at this point. Or it's in the lab in somewhere, someone's lab, but it costs $300 million to make a little pack.
Yeah, so little disconnect between what's available, what we can get, and what's coming. And we all know from being in this now, this is our 12th year, so we've been through a decade of some of these announcements, and
Yes.
they really are vaporware. Like these announcements really did go like absolutely nowhere, and then you got a guy like Elon who makes an announcement, and I mean he brought the goods. He brought the battery, he brought the graphs, he brought the illustrations, and
here's the thing, right? I'm always like, look, if I'm gonna believe in the next battery technology, it's gonna be from someone like Elon, right?
Yeah.
But Elon's always this guy that doesn't never bets on magic. He always bets on very practical technology. Right. Everything that he talks about is not like some future thing. It's like it's the stuff that we have now. He's telling you. This time around, I bought into the buzz, and I thought, I was like, he's gonna announce the next battery technology, like the next generation. Yeah. I'm like excited about it. I'm like, yes.
Man, you fell for it. Come on, you should know better. It's I don't care what you do. It's like 10% a year, and if you do more, but people don't want to accept that, right? And if you don't, just go take a 5-year nap, wake up, and be like, wow, we've made 50% progress on the batteries. But that's what it's going to take. The people that are in this know, the people that are really doing the engineering and stuff, they know that these challenges are real. And there's no reason to overinflate, timelines or capabilities or energy densities and things like that, because at the end of the day, these are all quantitative and they're very measurable. Right. And we're just trying, and at least we're seeing the steady progress. That's what's so nice about it, is we're at a time where there's steady progress. And what I'm really hopeful so much more for now than I was in the past is the other players. Like, I am really excited about Volkswagen and Mercedes-Benz. I think it could be said for the Germans in general. I think they're starting to take this electrification thing really serious. And Mercedes and Volkswagen have done some battery agreements, and there's a couple other battery companies that are not the big, LG and Samsung and all that they're working with. And I honestly do think that we're in a time where that innovation might not come from Tesla, and that would be really exciting. I mean, imagine how exciting it would be to see, the next gen battery in something like the Volkswagen ID Buzz or something like that coming down the line. I mean, that would really, that would be neat to just open it up and broaden the playing field and not be so fixated on one brand to get all of our stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm rooting on Lucid, right? Like, they're the ones that are announcing. They're still announcing a lot of stuff.
No, the best thing about Lucid is they're walking more than they're talking.
Yes.
Right. And I mean, they really are. They're out there. They're setting records. They've got, they know what their efficiency is and their watt hour per mile range and what they're doing with their pack. And they're really just killing it right now. And then the time that they got at Laguna Seca, 133, I think, or 130. I mean, that is no joke. That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, just absolutely. Time, right? Yeah, there's guys that have raced there their whole life, and the fastest cars out there, and have never even gotten even close to that. So that's just mind blowing, right? And to see the path that a company like Lucid took versus, and no offense, but like the Faraday Futures of the world that seemed to have an announcement every 3 days and then just went nowhere, and they even jumped up and down like, we're building a factory, and then they published pictures of a dirt lot in Vegas with a Bobcat on it. I don't think they saw what kind of perspective that was compared to like a gigafactory and these other things getting built. And all while this is going on, you've got companies like, Rivian has been pretty hardworking and pretty quiet. Lucid's been pretty hardworking, pretty quiet. Workhorse is out there making these, commercial chassis, and they're selling them, right? They're not some promise like the Rivian Amazon van. These guys have already have stuff out there. So it's kind of interesting if you just kind of use the media to kind of get a barometer of what's going on versus looking at some of these actual companies and where they're at in their development without the hype and the social media machine and the articles and all that. And those are the guys that are really interesting. And for that reason, I really like Lucid. I think that they could do something with that.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of people that are just talking and talking. The one that comes to mind recently is that Nikola company, right?
Well, I mean, you can...
That imploded. That was pretty crazy how it imploded so quickly.
Everything those guys did seemed like borrowed technology. You know, they put out this personal watercraft, and all they did was bought Freeform Factory, which is actually a customer of ours from way back in the day that tried to make electric jet ski. And, you know, Nikola bought his system and said, oh, we have a personal watercraft. They did the same thing with the UTV. And so they seemed like these guys that were just building one-offs. And if you want to do that, just be EV West. That's a nightmare.
Speaking of one-offs.
One-offs. Oh, man. Yeah.
Speaking of one-off, I just got Lewis out of here.
Yeah.
So about a year ago, probably less than a year ago. No, about a year ago, I think. He reached out to me, and then we went out there and we bought a whole system from you.
Yeah.
Right. And then I was like, well, you could, you know, at this time I'm gonna get this place so I can build my fleet of cars and all that stuff, crazy stuff, right? And then he goes, well, can I come and build it at your place? And I'm like, yeah, sure, let's give it a shot or whatever. That guy, you know, he was very driven, and
I'm impressed. I'm impressed. It came down here, and we're so far away from you guys. You know, we're close, but it's 3 hours, and you go both ways. That's 6 hours. It's really tough to make it down here for a day of work. But yeah, you guys had it down here for a little while, and I know we were really excited to see it go back to your place, because now that you had a shop, I knew it would get done. But you guys did it quicker than I thought. I was really impressed. Yeah.
Well, and here's the crazy thing. I didn't do a thing on that thing. I think I did the BMS balance leads. Harnesses?
Well, you're moving into my position now. You know, you bought the lift, you got the shop.
Yes.
Every now and then they ask you a question, and you get to answer it, and like feel, you know, okay, got the right answer.
And here's the weird thing, you know, you fake it till you make it. I hadn't done that system at all. It's my first time. I never done that bus. I never done those batteries. I never done that motor system.
Don't sell yourself extremely short here. I mean, you've done a lot, and you've done the same form factor, motor,
technology,
right.
Basics. I just never got my hands dirty, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted him to come and do it here, because I'm like, go for it. I get to experiment with someone else's system without having to buy it. I'm like, I'm good. You know what I mean? Like,
and he's a neat dude to be around. You know, it's neat to. We enjoy that. We enjoy like people that have a different perspective on things, kind of getting them to talk about the conversions and where they see it. You know, you and I are very similar for our reasons that we got into this and what we wanted out of it and stuff like that. And as this expands and becomes more of a popular thing, we're going to see more and more people that don't have those really nerdy kind of technical reasons that were what were driving you and I to do this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, way down the line, we're going to have a lot of people that are really just doing this for the environment. They're not car people, right? So they're not really going to be the person out there converting a Volkswagen bus, but at the same time, we still need, you know, their efforts to help kind of clean up the environment and switch, you know, transition to electric. So they'll share all that stuff with the electrics, because you really have to learn it. You got to learn your driving and charging habits. If you're going on a road trip out of town, you actually have to sit down and do a little bit of planning. So it does, you know, it takes some learning, right? And because we're early on and we have so much love for the technology, we're more than willing to go through all these big efforts. Yeah. But I'm not sure if like my mom is or my dad or these, you know, they just got a Tesla, by the way, last month. So now they're it. Yeah. You know, I was evil, Jehu. I loaned my dad the shop Tesla for like 3-4 days. That's all it took.
That's all it took.
He came pulling up out here. I looked out the window. I'm like, wow, my dad like washed and waxed the shop car. And then it took like a second for it to sink in. I'm like, oh, that's not the shop car.
He got the same color.
He got the same color. Yeah, the metallic gray or whatever.
Come on. Wow.
But yeah, it'll change you, you know, if you've never been in a Tesla and you drive it for the first time. And especially if you know, we gave my dad the opportunity to take it home. And he's got a charging station that he had previously installed, because he was driving some stuff here. He was driving the Baja Bug for a while. My dad was driving the 53. He helped me convert it. That was like our father-son project. And I sent the Bug to him so he could drive it, and he put in a charging station and all that. But I don't think he felt safe and,
yeah,
and the 53.
That's weird because that has a lot of power, and it's in this early version of like first generation bug, right? That's from like the 50s, like early 50s.
Yeah, 53.
Yeah,
crazy.
It's kind of a weird thing.
It's actually the first month that they made the oval.
The oval.
Yeah,
wow.
It was a May 53 body stamp, and the last Splitty left the factory in April of 53.
Damn. Yeah.
Splitty rear window.
Just missed the cut.
Just
Yeah.
missed it.
But those are all first gen bugs. Like the pans
Yeah.
are the same as the 49 prototypes, and right, it's pretty crazy.
And you know, I don't know if you know this story. I think so, because I kind of talked to you and your brother and I really got your brother's advice, Gabriel. For those that don't know, you have a Volkswagen question. He's fantastic. But the car came to us as a split window, and I immediately wanted to make, see if it was real. So I ran the body numbers, and it came back as an oval. And the more we dug into it, we could see that somebody actually grafted an oval window onto, a split window onto it. And I went to about 3 car shows, and every single car show, everyone was like, "Oh my God, is this a real Splitty?" It was like all everybody wanted to answer, and we can't tell a lie, so we're like, "No, it's not a real Splitty." And then they get mad at you, and you're like, "I didn't do this." And then they get mad at you because it's a Baja bug, and you're like, "I didn't do this." And so we actually went out and got a split window. I'm sorry, an oval window chassis that had a bunch of damage, but had a very clean rear window, and we regrafted on an original oval window to the car. So now it's all, age appropriate or whatever you want to call it.
Now it's legit.
Yeah, it's still a Baja bug, so we're still going to get grief for that. But there's some support groups out there. I think Oval Bajas or something like that.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. These are very rare, very early versions of Volkswagens. For those of you that are watching this don't know what you're talking about. Like, there's millions of bugs out there, right? But the really early first generation ones are really rare, and and so
the Bajas they put on typically an IRS pan. So I have a 53, and I think it's sitting on like a 71 pan. And it was funny because when I talked to your brother, he's like, "Wow, that's like an early oval. Those are very sought after, rare, and worth thinking about maybe doing the restoration process." But the most difficult thing that would almost never happen is finding an early 53 pan. There's no way in the world you're going to find a 53 pan anymore that's orphaned, from its body or whatever. So, but we're not out here. I mean, look at, Wolfsburg, Stuttgart, they got all their examples in their museums and everything. They're not worried about some electric dude making Baja bugs in California. There's plenty of museum examples.
Here's the thing, that bug is being driven around, and it's a cool bug.
Yeah.
By the way, it's one of the coolest bugs that you can get into. Got tons of power. It beat some other car. Remember we did that video? Remember we did the Jonathan Ward.
What was that? That was, we raced. We went up to Matt's shop. We went up to Stealth EV in Oceanside and hung out with Matt and raced the Baja and the Thing. And that was fun. We got to do more stuff like that, more raw.
Yeah, I think so. I think now, you know what I want to do? I have my bus, right? I have the new one that I'm driving now. It's a 13 window 67.
Yeah.
And it's got an AC50 motor, right? With smart batteries. I have an identical 67 13 window that I bought. It's an exact.
Is that your brother's old one?
No. This is another one that I bought. Okay. Right? It's identical. It's the same color. If you take pictures side to side, you're like, oh, these are.
Is it a walkthrough?
It's a walkthrough.
Is it for sale?
We'll
talk later.
but here's what I want to do. I'm like, I already did this Hyper 9 system, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I'm going to buy one. I'm going to put it in here. Then I want to do a comparison because now it's identical vehicle with the same battery system. Yeah. The only difference here, the only variable is going to be that motor system. Right. And so, because it's kind of weird. Like, I remember I should have paid more. I should have listened to you more in this.
Oh, you and me both.
Lewis, on this Lewis's thing, because you were telling us, look, the Hyper 9 has more torque, but it has lower continuous output, and you're trying to put it in this big car. Like this bus is big. It's got a big roof line add on to the thing. It's got some guy that doesn't know how to drive. He's gonna probably be stomping it all the time, right? And I'm like, whatever. Come on, let's just do it. Oh, and then we end up throwing a bunch of battery in there, like 70 kilowatt hours, 75 kilowatt hours.
Right. So as if weight doesn't matter.
Exactly. So now a couple of days ago, I'm calling you and it's like, hey, why is this system like cutting down? Like, it's overcurring,
overcurrenting. Yep.
And I'm like, what is going on? It's like every time this guy stomps it from every green light, right? God. It's like he's right. By the way, he fixed it. It turns out there was a way to fix it by
you lower the max setting a little bit, turn it down. No,
he had to recommission the motor and change some of those parameters.
Yeah, so his sensor wasn't. Yeah, and that that's kind of a thing with those synchronous, reluctance motors. That encoder, I mean, it just has to be spot on with any synchronous motor. It's not as forgiving as the induction motors are, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's pretty common. And in fact, we've gotten, like I know when we did the Pinto for the Netflix show, Rest to Riches or whatever, that when it fired up and the two motors twin, it was running and everything, but we just knew it wasn't giving all the power. And so we went through and we actually recommissioned the sensor while it was attached to the weight of the other motor, because one of the things that affects the commissioning of the sensor is the rotor inertia, right? And so this changes if you have your shaft coupled to another shaft. So we went through and recommissioned the sensors on that, and it immediately felt like a 50% increase in horsepower. I mean, it was just immediate, And so we've got the new firmware, version BD, out now, an early version of that we can send to people that allows them a simpler process to commission their own sensor.
I see. And that's a whole new thing for me, because I'd never done that, right? The AC.
Well, what was the problem with the HPVS ones was always the sensor would just fail.
Yeah. And then I think I finally got it where mine doesn't.
Yeah, well, they've gotten past that. They use a nice Honeywell integrated bearing encoder now, and
The thing is, I looked into maybe setting my motor to do that, to upgrade it to that new system.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it's too much money. I just, it's not worth it.
Right. Just build another bus. Just get another.
Yeah.
Just get another 67.
Now I have a line.
I think what we're really excited about right now with the splits is the Tesla drive, right? We've got it to a point now where we've got a real similar subframe to our Porsche subframe that just bolts in, no cutting, no nothing. You can buy the 930 outer flange, the CV flange from MP, and then we have the inner 930, so now you can just buy like axles right off the shelf for your conversion. So it's truly a bolt-in. And then we use that kind of like bolt-in IRS kit that clamshells over the torque tube in the back there. And so the whole thing, we wanted to be able to, because we've got a Samba in here, we've got a 21 window, and we wanted to see if we could go through this process, but still keep it truly like reversible, where we did, even the IRS was kind of like a reversible thing. So if they wanted to go back to the swing axle with reduction boxes, whoever knows why. If they wanted to, for the value or the integrity of the vehicle, that avenue is open to them now. So it's a neat way to kind of approach it, and it really doesn't take much from the build to do it in a way that can be kind of reversed. Yeah.
How far are you from finishing that
one? Finishing which one? The Samba?
The Samba that's got the...
It should be driving around like any minute. We just finished. They just drove Zach's bus for the first time today, so they're driving that bus around now.
And that one also has a...
That's 10 modules, 53 kilowatt hour Hyper 9 system. Yeah.
Hyper 9, the low.
Yeah, and it's the high top bus and everything. It feels really good for a real heavy bus. It pulls. It's got that motor runs.
So
well.
You put the low voltage one on it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But the weight is all in the center, so that should be pretty
right.
cool.
Yeah, and the voltage, a lot of times, for those of you out there looking at planning a system, a lot of times the difference between a 120 volt and 144 volt motor, it's such a small difference. It's such a nuance that what we say is let the car decide. So in the case of this bus, based on the space that we had for batteries and all that, we figured about 10 modules is about the most that we could fit. And there's really no way to orchestrate that on a high voltage motor, but on a low voltage, we can do a 2P5S configuration, stay in the 120 volt range, and still have that massive 53 kilowatt hour of capacity. So it's got a pretty good range, you know.
Yeah.
So, but if it was something where they wanted less range, you know, maybe we would consider a 6 or 7 module high voltage system. So they're really what was dictating the motor between a high voltage Hyper 9 or a regular voltage. And the same is true with an AC50 or AC51. What was really dictating it was the battery.
The battery.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because the batteries, you can't just add, oh, can I just add another little module?
Yeah.
No, you can't.
Right. There's one of those questions you get all the time, right? Well, no, I'll just do it like this and then add batteries when I get some more money. And you're like, you're going to need a lot more money because you're going to need a new charger, you're going to need a new BMS, instrumentation, maybe a motor. Yeah.
Yes.
Inverter.
Yeah, everything has to work together.
Matched. Yeah.
And everything has limits, and the limits are right there that just changing, it takes you over to the next limit.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm really interested to see how Lewis does with that bus. He already ran out of battery. That guy is so adventurous. He literally, I'm like, you want to take it around and, you know, test it? He's like, no, I'm driving home. Brr. Like, no testing whatsoever. Drives 50 miles away to Venice where he lives. Yeah. And then the next day, doesn't charge all the way up, by the way.
Yeah.
He doesn't have 240 at home. He only has 110.
Yeah.
So charges it, I don't know where, to like 70%, and then heads out to some 100+ mile trip.
Isn't that nuts? Well, that's like us. We did buses by the bridge and all that. Which, by the way, I was looking it up. I was kind of getting excited for January.
Yeah.
And there was a date published online. And then, about an hour or two ago, we actually had the Custom Coachworks guys from Colorado through the shop about an hour ago. They're in town for Octo, right?
For Octo.
And, yeah, John and the crew out there, just great dudes. But, yeah, they told me that it was canceled this year. I hadn't realized. Yeah.
I saw the cancellation thing, which is crazy that we actually have a show coming tomorrow. Because this is in Southern California, you know, the rules are super strict out here, but somehow they gave the okay, and as long as you follow certain rules or whatever.
Well, I mean, in all fairness, it is an outdoor show, and there's plenty of room over there at the Veterans Stadium, and it's always been a neat show, and I think
so. I'm going.
We're all trained now.
I haven't done anything since January, since February. Since we saw.
We're starting to miss it. In the beginning, it was kind of nice. So I'm starting to miss it now. You know?
Yeah, me too. I'm antisocial, but only for, I guess, 6 months.
Yeah.
That's my limit.
It's weird. Like, it's definitely weird not going to SEMA this year. That's a big miss. I still don't know what's up with the Austin show. I think it's out in June or July this year, which would give them more time for to plan or get a vaccine out or whatever they're going to do.
Well, ask him next week. I think I have a schedule for next week at the podcast.
Oh, yeah, you're doing Robert Llewellyn, right?
Yes,
yeah.
Robert Llewellyn's coming next week.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, he just interviewed Charlie Boran.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. This Charlie, along with Ewan McGregor, did this show that does this series of shows where they travel the world in a motorcycle.
Yep.
And you told me about this, and I never seen it. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I don't care about this stuff. It's not until it came up in my Apple TV the other day. I'm sitting there. I'm like,
now you care.
So yes, I'm like, what should I watch? It's such a weird thing, dude. Like, you're just sitting at home watching TV, picking something. Something comes up, boom, and there's Michael. He's going to EV West,
riding an Alta without a helmet in the rain.
In the rain, yes. So.
It sucked. They were supposed to come and do all this filming, and it never rains. And it just, poured cats and dogs, like, all day. There was no let up at all. We were going to do some stuff outside, some stuff in his Beetle and a bunch of other stuff, and there's really nothing we could do but sit on the couch and chit-chat. And I really didn't even think any of it would make the show.
Well, let me ask you about this, because this is so weird. Like, look, okay, so I'm watching it. Was this shot in sequence? This is before they took off?
Oh, yeah. No, it's. This is real. This wasn't a Hollywood deal. You know, they're the real deal, you know, as far as what they did and the miles that they rode. And the timeline was linear, yeah.
So then they go and basically ask you. For those of you who haven't seen the show, you guys should go watch it. It's called Long Way Up, right? It's in Netflix. No,
Yeah.
it's on Apple TV.
Apple TV. Yeah.
So they're saying they get this great idea to travel all the way from South America all the way to LA, right? Which is like 15,000 miles, some crazy amount. And then they're like, could we do it electric? They're like, should we try this new thing, electric? And then they go and ask you. It's like, hey, you know, you're the electric guy. You know, you're converting his bug, right?
And I told them it was impossible, which is the line they wanted, right? And the funny thing is and they never made the distinction, right? But they're like, you know, I'm like the fair guy, like this, you can't go out and get a motorcycle that will do this. But these guys go to Harley Davidson and get a pre-production prototype. I'm like, well, of course that can make 100 miles a day. But at the time they were looking, they had they played around with the Zero. They looked genuinely at doing the Altas. That's one of the reasons they came by here. But at that point, Alta had just closed their doors, so they didn't really have a manufacturer's support. So that's a little risky. And those won't do 100 a day. And I mean, there really isn't a motorcycle that does genuine, like good, real world 100 miles, especially with some pack and some weight and stuff like that, what they were doing. So I'm really, really happy that they hooked up with Harley Davidson and Harley got them a capable bike. Because if you've watched the show, you can tell based on their charging times and their traveling times, if they had any shorter range, it probably would have been impossible. They probably actually would have just had to call it and quit, because as it was, they were really struggling to keep the bikes charged. You know?
And there was quite a bit of, I mean, I don't know, there's not cheating, but there was quite a bit of cheating there, because there was an early...
Well, now, is it really cheating? I mean, you've tow charged.
No, I'm not talking about that.
But we've all done it. We've all done a little bit of what they're doing. We've even, you know, the famous line was one of my engineer's brothers. We went dirt bike riding with him out in the desert, and he comes up to our Alta as we're charging it on a Honda generator, and he's like, this is the loudest electric bike I've ever heard in the pits. Well, is that cheating? I mean, you know, just because you ride electric, you're not doing it just for the environment. And that's very important to understand, that this isn't just an environmental thing. So just because you hire a truck to follow these guys, it'd be the same if they had small gas tanks. You'd hire a gas truck to follow them and fill up their tanks as they needed it. But what is so enjoyable about these bikes is the instant torque. No clutch, no need to shift. You can be in the middle of a really hairy hill climb and actually, you know, adjust your throttle and traction and do a lot of that stuff. So there's all these other advantages to it. And, you know, obviously there were in some places down there in South America where they needed to truck in a generator and do some stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. This is as remote as it gets of an environment. Like when you're out there, the Patagonia. Yeah. So most of us don't know what Patagonia is. Like, I'm sorry. Like, right, I'm Mexican. I should know a little bit more of my heritage in South America. Know nothing about this stuff. I just like, it's a whole continent out there with beautiful cedar. Like,
you know what's funny is my dad, they just got back from Patagonia before they did that. And he's showing me pictures of the very first spot. And it's a famous spot with those little elevated wooden walkways. And my dad's showing me pictures. There's like hundreds of people there. You're at the end of the road, into the earth, and there's like, and I didn't realize how crowded of a spot Patagonia was. And so then when Charlie and Ewan go there, right away I'm like, where is everybody? This seems weird. Did they hush everywhere? You'll get everyone out. And then sure enough, like a school bus shows up and there's like 50 kids, 100 kids kind of mobbing them. But yeah, it's really neat to see them start all the way down there. I mean, so far from everything. And I know Rivian helped them.
Yeah,
they
Rivian
put some
is crazy.
charging
I was excited because
I'm
a Rivian
fan.
Pre-order.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right.
So I have 2 on pre-order, right? And I want some plans. It's actually shaping my thing because I'm like, dude, when I get my Rivian, I'm going to be probably among the first ones to get it because I placed my pre-order like 2 years ago or something, right? Like, as soon as I knew about them, I'm placing a pre-order.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that. I was impressed. You were on it for sure.
Yeah. And so if I do, I'm like, there's going to be a lot of people that want to know, right?
Yeah.
About these cars, what it is. And I'm like, I want to do some challenge. Like I thought about doing the thing that we did to go to Buses by the Bridge, where I make a little trailer full of batteries.
Right.
And I'm like, I want to do like a battery because I have a bunch of battery here now.
Yeah.
And it's really cool, very compact, like battery. And so I go, I have like 180 kilowatt hour like worth of battery that I can throw on the trailer and then tow it. And this is a heavy trailer, right?
Right.
It's about 2,000 pounds of battery. And I'm like, but this can tow quite a bit. It's a truck.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, what if I do that? Put some solar panels. Everybody wants to know if you can drive on forever with solar panels. And I'm like, you probably can. No one's going to try it because it's a huge investment. You got to get these.
I mean, you would never be able to do it, right? Continuous motion on the freeway is 20 kilowatt.
Yeah.
You're not going to get 20 kilowatt. I mean, I've got 44 panels on my house at home, and I think peak I'll see, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So now the other thing is, how far can you get on a single charge without ever plugging in? I want to call it unplugged. Yeah. Across America, unplugged and see how far I get.
Look at what Joel's doing with Route de Sol, right? With the E-Star, and that's a neat kind of way to do it, where he travels and camps. And this came from really Brett Ballon. It's Solarola. He's really the impetus. I think everybody had it in their mind, but it takes a really creative individual like Brett to be like, well, I'm going to build it. You know, and it was neat because he didn't have that EV knowledge, but he knew enough to do it right. Like, he didn't balance his batteries per se, but he was monitoring individual voltages and just doing a lot of neat things to kind of get an affordable solar powered bus conversion. And then he went out after that. We actually got hit up by a gentleman named Red Foo, a music artist. And at the time, we were just way too backed up, and we actually suggested that he talk to Brett because Brett was trying to get this thing going, and they hit it off, and Brett ended up building him a bus, and just absolutely beautiful bus. It came out perfect, and they picked it up. They've been driving it around, and there was a bit of weather near their house, I think last month, and a tree blew over and fell on it. I think it's totaled.
Oh no.
Yeah, bay windows don't put up much of a fight against a falling tree. Kind of a bummer.
Yeah. And they put a lot of work into that.
They put a lot of work. Yeah.
That it extended up and like it lift up with some actuators.
And it was just a beautiful bus too. And Red Foo's a really neat. He's not your typical musician, neat dude. And so that was a little bit of a bummer. I think they're going to rebuild it.
You guys don't know, that's the Sexy and I Know It guy. Right? He's got the huge hit or whatever.
You got to sing it now.
Yeah. Sexy and I Know It or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but so hopefully we'll see a rebuild of that one. But I get it, that solar thing. It's pretty neat. But at the same time, I think where we're really moving is into this avenue where you have these portable charging stations. There's a little bit of a solar plaza like they did at Tesla did at Kettleman City. I think really that's going to be what we're going to see moving forward, especially paired up with Tesla power packs. And now, PG&E and Tesla just announced that Moss Landing project where they're deploying the first mega packs, and the overall capacity there I think is like I can't remember, 1,200 megawatt hours or something like that. I mean, just a
mega pack.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
Wow.
But it's the when they finish it, it will be the largest battery storage facility in the world until next month, and then somebody else comes out with a bigger one. But it's neat, being from California and Tesla being from California, and just really seeing them push this. And then they've already announced, I think there was 2 peaker plants in PG&E's network that they're taking offline because of this. And peaker plants are some of the dirtiest, most expensive ones to operate. So this really does help for sure.
Yeah. And we need that right now in California.
Yeah.
Because we're starting to see rolling blackouts and shutdowns and
heat waves. We're in the middle of a heat wave right now, and it's literally the tail end of October. It's fall. We're past the fall equinox. It's fall. Yeah. It's the tail end of October, and I mean it's hot outside. Yeah.
So I'm doing crazy business here. Like the battery stuff is just flying off my shelves. It's hard to keep it in stock. Yeah. Because people are waking up to the idea of like, hey, we need batteries. Battery storage.
And you have a neat way of presenting it, right? That helps.
Yeah. So one last thing, and then I'll let you go. When are we doing DIY fast charging? Do you see that happening at all?
Yeah.
I've been playing around with the BMS.
Yeah.
So here's the thing.
Oh, I saw your video the other night, your dilithium video. Good job, bud. Yeah, okay, that was great.
So I ordered one for a customer,
uh-huh,
right? And then I got to play with Lewis's one. And so I'm like, well, I got to order my own. So I ordered one for me.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to play with it and stuff. And I know people ask me all the time about BMSs that are for larger systems, you know, more than 48 volts.
Yeah.
Right? Because the 48 volts is it's available. There's a ton of them out here.
Right.
I have a list of things that I have to, different ones that I have to make videos on, but not on large systems. And the lithium one is one of them that is out there, and it doesn't have a lot of coverage. Like when you Google it, there's a few places that sell it. There's a couple of people that made a couple of videos about it. No one's really explored it too much.
And yet it's like the best BMS on the market, really. I think the important things to note when you're talking about a professional grade BMS like that, you know, when the BMS is measuring the voltage within the individual cells, and for any device to measure voltage, they can't do that without actually pulling electrons out of the battery to measure its potential. And when you do that, you're actually removing energy from the battery. So the constant process of checking voltage is going to drain the battery. Up until recently, the best chips out there, their vampire or their dormant drain was around 6 milliamps, right? So after 1,000 hours, you would have 6 amp hours of draw, which is quite a bit, actually, because, you know, it's pretty common to go out of town maybe for a month or not drive your car. We've had customers that were in the services and went overseas for 6 months. So there's all sorts of situations. Of course, East Coast people have winter cars and summer cars. So there's a lot of reasons why a car would be left too long. And we've seen this. It's actually a real world problem of, you know, bricking your pack. So the LTC, Linear Technologies, came out with a chip that is rated at 4 microamps, which is 4 millionths of 1 amp, right? So a huge factor less. And that's really, in my opinion, what makes the dilithium. It's not what it does as much as what it doesn't do. And you can leave it attached to your battery for really long periods of time without it bricking. And this is a huge deal. I mean, I'm looking right at you, smart car, and all these other, like, I mean, there's OEMs, right? Mercedes smart car that has this problem with their current smart electric. If you park that car for like more than a month and come back, there's a really good chance that car will never drive again. And so we don't, you know, we want to see stuff that is more flexible than that.
Yeah. Oh, Eli's here. Yeah. So with that said, do you see any future or near future implementation of that to work with CCS combo?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got another product coming along that's going to work in conjunction with that. I'll be able to talk a lot more on it after the first of the year. But we definitely have some good stuff coming, right?
Okay. So, yeah, we're all waiting for that because we love our DIY vehicles, but there's one Achilles heel still. Like, there's one thing that doesn't let us drive across America, and is fast charging.
Right. I want to talk about a couple things, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
Jack Rickard passed away recently.
Jack Rickard passed away. Yes. Yeah. So sad.
And we saw eye to eye at times, and couldn't even see eye to eye at other times. We both said nice stuff about each other and not so nice stuff. But I love the guy. Rest in peace. And he was really responsible for bringing a lot of us together. You know, you and I were lucky. We met at a Volkswagen event, but then subsequently hung out together at Jack's and did a lot of other stuff that he was an integral part in all of that. And I know there's probably people out there listening right now that are part of the EV community, and Jack has left an impression on them in some way, maybe taught them something that they didn't know. He was known for having a lot of patience. There was a lot of guys that, he like keeps popping in here. There's a lot of guys that he really helped them through their whole build. And to have somebody like that not in the community anymore, it really leaves a hole out there. And I didn't want to just go on without at least mentioning it. You know, he's done a lot of neat stuff for us in the community. It's sad to not have him around anymore. And for the people that are just getting into this now, you know, EVTV was a big thing for a big period. And I did speak with Richard Flenge the other day. And they are continuing EVTV. They're, you know, still, you can buy stuff from them. They're still in business. They're still building and shipping and all that. He's got the same building, and so EVTV is going to live on without Jack Rickard, and rest in peace.
Did you see the last video they made was actually fascinating? They did a great job.
I mean, he's been, you know how Jack is. You give a little, you take a little. You know, he's just. You know, he's controversial, but then again, so is Elon, so is all these other guys. I don't think he's on that level at all, but what I do think is that he forced a lot of people to go back and kind of rethink some stuff. And, you know, and he pushed a lot of people to really push this market. He cared a lot about the market. Like, at the end of the day, he really cared about what, you know, maybe say what you want about him. Maybe he didn't care about the people, but he cared about what they were trying to do in general, and that just made him a real neat guy for that matter.
Yeah. You know what's so weird? Like, right around that time, we had someone, Joseph Verletta, he was one of our guests, and he was like, I'm going to go see Jack, because before, you know, it's probably near the end and stuff. And I don't think he made it. I think it was that weekend or something that he was going to go. And I remember talking to Brian here and going like, hey, we should invite Jack to be on the podcast. Like, I know, did you ever?
Right.
He actually did send an email. So
you did.
That same week, you know, I didn't know that he was that bad, because I don't watch it. I was not watching his videos regularly anymore. But I'm like, you know, this is a long time ago. I don't hold a grudge. So I'm like, let's talk to him. You know what I mean? Let's get him back in here, get him talking, and then we just missed him. I mean, by days, you know, it was crazy. And
there's a little bit of him and all of us at this point. You know,
he was brilliant. He was brilliant explaining concepts, explaining, you know, how the technology works, how to think about this, how he would come up with this vision, with his ideas and stuff. It was great. There's hours and hours and hours.
Oh God, hours and hours, even on QuickTime 2x speed. Can't get through it all. So the other thing I wanted to bring up, Brian and I were chatting before the show, and I was hoping to do a little bit of a surprise guest. I just got word he's not going to be able to join us right now, but I think he will in the future, so maybe we can do another show. But Ewan was going to join us and talk a little bit about daily life with his electric Beetle.
Oh, wait, he's back. You're back.
Oh, I went away.
You froze. You froze. Right about what you're saying. A secret guest. Boom, you froze.
Right, so I'll back up. We can edit this out later or whatever. But so I was talking to Brian before the show, and we kind of had a plan of surprising you with a secret guest. And Ewan McGregor was going to join us and talk about his Beetle. You know, I mean, he genuinely drives his electric Beetle. It's his daily driver. And he's out of town right now. He's back in New York filming his next project, and he's a little busy. But I think what I'm trying to do is maybe set a time that we can come back and join you. He doesn't have a lot of time, but it'd be fun to talk a little bit about his Beetle. He's a car guy, and I think he'd give us some neat insight to his daily life with an electric Beetle.
That's right. Car. You converted an early
54. I think a 54
oval
54
window,
or 56 oval. Yeah.
And he drives it. Yeah, and he was notoriously struggled with it when it used to be gas, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And so now
And he had the first test drive. We went up, I think it's called Topanga Canyon Road or something, a real twisty road up there. And first corner we come into, just super hot. Hubcap goes flying off into somebody's yard. And I'm just like, I hope nothing bad happens here. I mean, you know how it is. You just did that with Lewis, right? And they get in this car that they've been driving for, you know, a decade or whatever, and it's got no power. Then all of a sudden they have all of this power available to them, and you just hope they don't do anything stupid with it, you know?
Yeah.
So,
all right. Yeah. Hopefully we'll have the audio. You also cut again right now.
Yeah, I figured I cut. You hung up there, but I'm recording audio on my end, so hopefully we'll make this acceptable for the viewership when it gets posted.
Oh, well, it'll be good. All right, Matt. Well, hey, am I going to see you tomorrow?
I hope so. So. Yeah. So I'm not 100% sure. You know, I was gonna. I actually don't think I can make it now. We gave our red bus to AEM Electronics.
What? And, who is AEM Electronics?
Yeah, they're up there in Hawthorne. They're doing our new displays and the VCU that they're doing for the EVs, and we're working on it. Just a ton of neat new stuff is coming out of there. And so they're doing a lot of, they're real data guys, and so they wanted to capture a lot of data from various different vehicles with different systems. And so they wanted the bus. The bus is neat because it's got, 60 kilowatt hour, good range, maybe 200 miles, and then they can do all the capturing on the NetGain Hyper 9 system over CAN and all that, right? And that's you were talking earlier, we kind of were short on the dilithium, but that's one of the real strong points of that too, is you have your BMSs, the 48 volt ones and stuff like that, and those are really geared to just plug and play. And then you got something like the dilithium, and you were going through in your video the features, but it's really the flexibility, the fact that you can go in through the serial interface and you're not just stuck at 3.3 and 4.2. I mean, you can do different chemistries, you can do different balancing points, you can there's so much stuff that you can do in the configuration. It's extremely powerful. And then all of that data is put onto CAN bus. So you can add on one of these aftermarket solutions. Like we have the AEM display for it. And we actually provide the CAN DBC file for the BMS. So you don't have to go in and do all the hexadecimal PID addresses and the bits and all that stuff. So we make it a little bit easier to do that as well. And as we move forward and you start seeing people specialize more, dilithium does make their own displays, but then when you work with a company that actually specializes in display making, that's where you really start to get a good quality system. And so the dilithium really, that's that main feature that I think allows that.
And the other thing that I'm really glad that it does is all the thermistor inputs that it has. There's no other BMS that has that many thermistors. On the build that I did, every single module has one thermistor.
Right.
So I could know the temperature of all the cells. I mean,
the whole cell. Yeah, and I tell people, because this comes up and they'll say, hey, I couldn't catch all my thermistors. This module only has one, or I missed a module. And I tell them the same thing. That's for a general temperature of your pack. You're not going to see an imbalance that's going to cause a temperature difference that won't first show up as a millivolt delta air, right? To really create heat, you've got to be a substantial amount out of balance, and you're going to trigger your voltage alarms a long time ago. So even though the temperatures are there and you have warnings for them, it's not necessarily what's going to prevent that as much as just really monitoring the voltage itself.
So that's a pretty cool thing. I want to play with it. I'm already getting, I'm asking Louis all the time, hey, what are your cells temperature, and he's like, oh, let me check. Oh, this is
hey, what are your cells at? 2.7. Is that bad?
That's what he told me. He goes, how far can I go? I go, what's your voltage? I go, that's 2.7 per cell. I go, you're done. Find a charger.
Oh my God, he was done 20 volts ago.
Yes. And you know great. What? I told him to get the Tesla charging cable thing.
Yeah, their cord.
He got that because it's got all the interconnects.
Yeah.
And then it has that I told him to get that thing where it turns the Tesla plug into J1772. So now he can find any of these destination chargers, Tesla destination.
A neat way to build that is actually with a Tesla receptacle. So we just did this with the thing because we didn't want to cut the very first thing that we did. We cut the filler neck out and we put a billet aluminum custom-made piece that accepted the J1772.
Okay.
And it was 76 millimeter diameter, 3 inch. It was really big. It looked nice. It's billet. It looks nice, but it's not factory. It's not original. And since then, we've manufactured a Tesla charge inlet. using Delrin, and so we put that on our lathe, and we were able to make it the perfect diameter of the inside of the filler neck on the thing. So now the thing that we just did, and it's appropriate because it's a Tesla drive and a Tesla battery, right? So we've got a Tesla charge cord, and now the neat thing is they carry just the barrel connector that comes with all the Teslas. And so if they're out at Whole Foods and it's just J1772, then they use their little barrel connector. And to us, that's what we've been finding is a really good solution for these guys. And this particular customer, in particular, their other car is a Tesla, so they've already got the wall box at home. So it starts to make a lot of sense. So somebody like a Lewis, and you can do this after the fact, right? You can go in and remove the J1772 inlet. Like if you talk to him and he's using his adapter like literally every time he charges it, it might be smart to just turn that into a Tesla and then...
well, and here's the thing. Can those pins... those pins can handle more current than the J1772. Because we're almost
theoretically, yes, yeah, absolutely. They have a higher rating. Yeah, I think the actual rating is 80 amp, but they do have a higher rating than our J1772, and they're a higher quality pin.
On DC they can handle like a lot of amps, right?
Well, you know, keep in mind all of those ratings are continuous, and a supercharger never has that rating.
It's 20 minutes,
right, max. And it's really peak. I mean, all these guys are playing this game now. When you plug in your charge profile, just it looks like a mountain peak. You know, it just really goes up. Yeah, and it hits. You know, I've got a super old Model S, and so it tries to appease me, and it hits like 112 kilowatt, and then just drops down to like 50. You know, and so it's really that continuous thing. I think Porsche was really trying to mislead some people on charge rates when at the end of the day what really matters is how many miles of range did you put in your car in how many minutes. And you know, because they might have a higher rate for a brief period of time, but the overall efficiency of a Tesla is better, which actually makes their charging stations more effective at distance. And so you know, you see some, and we're going to see a lot more of this too as the electric market heats up and we've got OEMs actually vying for business. I mean, this is new, you know, like as of now, you could go out and you can actually decide between a Model S and a Taycan, and we didn't have that before. So it's actually great that there's an alternative there. And there's a few that have popped up in the neighborhood I've seen in the wild. It's a gorgeous looking car, and I'd love to see, you know, let's see, where's Maserati's electric sedan, right? Where's the Mercedes electric sedan? I mean, there's still a lot of stuff coming to market that's going to be fantastic. You know, a lot of reasons to get excited for moving forward, and we're going to have competition for electric cars. It's going to be fascinating.
It's exciting times.
Yeah,
we're living in exciting times. Well, Michael, thank you for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Always a pleasure hanging out with you.
Yeah, man. Yeah, talking about good old electric car talk.
Yeah.
I gotta pay you a visit because I know you got some exciting, like always, you got exciting stuff. But now you got exciting stuff that it's in my realm, which is the Sambas, right?
Yeah.
Not that that's the only thing that I want to do, but that's the thing that I.
Hey, when you got something that works, right? When you got a specialty, stay with it. But
I'm gonna start mine pretty soon, so I think I'm gonna be bugging you more on these systems.
Yeah.
Because I do want to do the one with the Tesla drive.
Yeah.
Then I want to do one with hyper.
It's nice. The nice thing about the Tesla, more than anything, you know, eliminate the power and all that. And you know, the Achilles heel and all the vintage stuff is really the transmission. You know, we really struggle around the transmissions. I know you've been through a couple. I've been through a couple.
Yes.
More than a couple.
Yeah.
And so from that standpoint, it's pretty neat that the Tesla eliminates that. We just came out with a really neat long stick CAN bus enabled shifter. So in the buses, we can replace, the big long, 20-inch shifter, and that sends a CAN bus signal to our controller, which, you know, doesn't shift. It just reverses the rotation of the motor. So, yeah.
Or puts it in gear, neutral, drive, and forward.
Sure. Like it's going in gear. Sure.
Yeah. That's cool.
So
I mean, you have that thing in the floor.
Yeah.
Right. And
it's there. Yeah. And it's you know, one of these things. One of the goals of this whole thing is getting the systems mature, right?
Yeah.
Getting them where you put this system in a vintage car and it really feels like an OEM system. And one of the big problems, particularly with the Volkswagen Bus, has always been the parking brake. We need a parking brake that's strong enough to hold the car on a hill. And early on, we're like, the Tesla comes with this fantastic, brake rotor based parking brake. And when you activate it, it clamps down with a little worm drive. It's not hydraulic, it's a worm gear that smashes the rotor. And I mean, it clamps, it's not going anywhere. So if you put something like this in the car, it's now electronically activated, and you could be going down the freeway at 60 miles an hour, reach for your windshield wiper switch and maybe accidentally pull out the parking brake switch instead. Now your rear end's locked up at 60 miles an hour, and it's not a soft lockup because it's this very capable Tesla parking brake. So that's where we're kind of going with these systems, where we're integrating a vehicle control unit now from AEM that's kind of like, the air traffic controller. So it's going to have the task of, okay, you want to deploy the parking brake, but I want to make sure that you're going slower than 5 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Okay, you're going slower than 5, I'll allow it to deploy. Same with shifting maybe motor direction. Things like, when you go out to an OEM car and it's still plugged in charging, let's say it's on the other side, you didn't see it or whatever, you jump in, you go to drive, and the first thing the display tells you is, hey, you need to unplug the car to drive. So it'd be really neat to have some, similar functionality in a vintage EV, and across the board, where you kind of have this VCU that's just taking care of everything, making sure that the motor is the right temperature, the batteries aren't too hot, the state of charge is okay. And so we got the VCU 200 from AEM this year, but what you're going to see next year is you're going to see a lot of systems that we sell, pre-integrated with a lot of the firmware and the files that come with it. So it'll just match to something like a NetGain system or a HP EVS or even a Tesla system. So it's really exciting. Awesome. And as is a component of that, you talked about third-party level 3 DC charging and stuff like that, and all of those components are going to be kind of stacked on as features down the line, things that we've been waiting a long time for, such as traction control and things like that.
Oh yeah, that's next level. That's cool stuff.
And they always have the next one up's the VCU 300 that controls something like 3 or 4 independent motors or something. I think they used that in the Ford Cobra Jet 1400, that they had like 7 motors in it or something like that.
Whoa.
So we're getting to this point now where the electronics are there to back what wild things we can dream up, right?
Yeah. Well, that's cool, man. Definitely, you got some cool projects. I want to see them. I want to go down there and shoot some videos. Because as you know, I've been kind of on hiatus. I haven't been shooting videos. People are complaining to me already, and I'm like, I'm building a shop.
I was wondering, I haven't seen something come up on my feed, and then that dilithium video came up, and this is what we do. We sit around at night and watch our friends' battery videos.
Yeah, but it's basically just like, what can I do that I only have 5 minutes to go here. It's like, oh, this one. But I want to start getting.
It's great because it's not out there, So, I mean, one of these days, we shot a video on how to convert a Ghia, and I'm just going to throw this out there because hopefully some of your viewers and fans will start hounding you. Jehu has the best video, step by step, doing a Ghia, right? And it turned into such a editing task, I think, for you.
Yeah. Well, no, it's just I think
there was some footage, there was some pickup shots you didn't have, and some stuff like that.
There was the battery system. I was like, I got really confused. I'm like, the battery system's not going to be available anymore. I think you're right. I should just finish it.
Publish it. Tell them, hey, this is an old. I mean, we still have some of those modules around. We still have that battery, but like all things, it just with time.
It's just the system. I was going into so much detail that we were still developing that cradle to hold those batteries.
Right.
And so I'm like, well, that was a one-off. The next one is going to be different. I'm like, how do I edit that, right?
Yeah.
And I think now I just have to kind of go generic on that part.
Right. And I think we did a couple of those. I know one went in Spencer's Ghia, one went in the red Ghia.
Yeah. And I have that. I have the CAD file video of like the whole. So I have enough to finish that. Yeah. Here's the crazy thing.
Well, if you're out there and you own a Ghia, email Jehu and ask him to convert Your Gia. He's got the file. He's got the lift now, right?
I got everything.
You got everything. You just
I
need
got
a Gia.
everything. Here's the cool thing. That last video that we uploaded was that pilot, and it's gonna be. I think I did it like on Christmas last year. It's gonna. I think it's about to hit 900,000 views.
Oh wow!
Probably
about to do a million views in a year.
Yeah. In a year, maybe it's about the time that we drop this Gia one.
Yeah.
Right? And
yeah.
Hopefully we do.
There's a huge
million.
appetite out there. I think just about everybody with an EV shop has been hit up from somebody from television. You know, because there's a huge appetite for this stuff out there, and there's people looking for content. We're doing a lot of fun little things. You know, we kind of figured out it's fun to be the guest episode guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So. Well,
I want to be in the Zoom too.
This is my son Eli Van Bream, also known as EV Bream. He wants to say hi.
There we go. Oh wow! And he's already been at the Salt Flats.
Yep. And he drives an electric. He's got a bunch of electric toys and stuff like that.
At Brian's.
Brian's, and that's a neat mention. So we have across the street here, we set up a charity, a 501c3 nonprofit organization called the Electric Vehicle Learning Center. I know. Thanks, bud. You got my back. ev-lc.org. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to help bridge that gap. When I grew up, if the lawnmower wasn't running properly, I would go out there with my dad, and my dad would show me how to clean the air filter, how to clean the jets in the carburetor, and, you know, gap the spark plug and check the oil and do all the things to, you know, really standard stuff that we take for granted now. But now we have this whole generation of kids like Eli that are out there running on Razor electric scooters and things like that.
And also the dirt bike and
the
chopper.
dirt bike and the chopper, all of his toys, right?
Because the chopper goes 20 miles per hour.
And we have a lot of parents that have a disconnect between their kid, and that's a really neat bonding thing. So if you have these kids that are, you know, 6, 7, 8 years old, 10 years old, young teenagers, and they want to work on their stuff, maybe upgrade the battery in their e-bike, like some of the projects that you do where they take maybe some mediocre equipment, stitch together some 18650s. And that's basically what we're doing over there, but in a more of a family setting that kind of teaches the kids and the adults kind of in a together thing. And so we've been having a lot of fun with that. Eli's been helping out. I know they've done a couple videos and stuff over there. So we'll have some more information on that. What's really hurt us has been COVID, because a lot of the stuff was supposed to be in-person learning, and now we're kind of going to a virtual model.
And we also went to Morro Bay, which is 300 miles.
Whoa. Wow.
And then I'm 5 years old right now.
5 years old only. All right, now you're just showing off.
So, anyways, he'll be a guest on your show in like 10 years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He'll have a lot of
maybe after your age, I can probably be in your show.
Oh, that's gonna be a long time.
And so the kids, the EVLC. For Bonneville next year, we are building for them a solar-powered car to go after something called the Omega class. And the Omega is a renewable class. And believe it or not, right now the record is like 42 miles an hour, I believe, on a rubber band-powered car.
Oh, wow.
And and so we're going to try and go next year with the kids and build them a solar powered car and try to see if we can get that record for them as well. So it's kind of a fun
I want to
thing.
break a record, but
of course we all want to break records, right?
I want to break a record, but with my toy going that is going 205 miles per hour.
Wow,
pretty lofty goals.
I want it like a Eli car, which is that has a cab, so cause I'm scared of
I'm sorry, thanks everyone for bearing with us.
Cause I'm scared of no roof on the top, so I want a roof, and then I also want a pedal that's close to my feet.
There you go.
So I can go.
Eli Bream, ladies and gentlemen, future land speed racer.
He wants a welded-on cage.
Yeah.
I want like a bicycle with a roof and doors, just like electric car, and I want the pedals that like next to my feet, and then like
man.
doors.
Okay, we gotta let them go, bud.
There
Right.
you go, man. This
See
is
ya,
the
bye.
next race car driver of the future, right there. Record holder.
I'm the record driver, which is me, Eli, that is 5 years old.
There you go. All right.
Thanks, bud.
All right.
So, well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks
Always
for coming.
a pleasure being a guest on your show. You can have me anytime.
Yeah. Oh, we'll have you back. There's so much stuff happening with you that we could always.
Thanks to the crew that puts it on behind the scenes. Thank you, Misa. Thank you, Brian. I really appreciate your work on the show for Jehu and the rest of the EV community.
I couldn't do it without them. Yeah. All right. We'll see you then. If we see you tomorrow, we see you tomorrow. If not, then we'll see you next. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. If not, I'll touch base with you next week and we'll chat then and catch up.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone. I appreciate your time. I had a blast, as always. And have fun. Stay safe and healthy out there.
All right. Same to you.
We'll see you.
Okay. Bye.